conservative you are. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. And I was just telling Tom McClintock, I don't think, because let me show you that you get a lot of respect in the sense of as much of a conservative as you are. I think the young people that were just sent, a lot of people know them as being very conservative. You've been a conservative all your life. I mean,
well,
you're a long time.
I ascribe to what Lincoln said when he visited Independence Hall on the way to his inauguration. He says, all the political sentiments I have, as far as I can tell, have been drawn from the sentiments expressed in the Declaration of Independence. Okay. That's my philosophy as well. I tell folks, I'm a lifelong Republican, but my loyalty is not to the Republican Party. My loyalty is to the principles of the American founding. My loyalty to the Republican Party extends only so far as it is loyal to those principles.
Okay, well, I just want to bring that up and everything. Okay, so also during that teleconference, you made a statement that there's, and I guess it's related directly to someone asked you about the NSA scandal, and you were saying there's a big blurring of war and peace and foreign and domestic. You want to elaborate a little on that?
Well, listen, this is something the American founders warned about a great deal. They felt that no society can long maintain its freedom in a condition of perpetual war. That's one reason why they vested questions of war and peace in the Congress representing all the people and not in the executive branch that has the most to gain from the accumulation of powers that are inherent with the perpetual war. And unfortunately, I think that we have cast aside the founders' wisdom on this matter and are now well down that road. And one of the signs of that is the indiscriminate search and seizure of the phone and internet records of millions upon millions of Americans without warrant by the NSA. And just this week, we've discovered that the NSA is actually sharing the product of these warrantless searches with other law enforcement agencies that then go back and cover up the fact that the evidence was produced without a warrant by something they call, I think it's a parallel construction. This is absolutely outrageous. The Fourth Amendment was specifically written to assure that the government cannot search your personal records, your private belongings, unless it has first produced evidence that there is probable cause to believe that you have committed a crime, and then obtain from a judge a warrant specifying specifically what it is they wish to search. That's all been thrown out the window, and that's one of the most fundamental rights that we have in the American Constitution. It dates back to the general warrants that the Royal Governor of Massachusetts served on colonists. It allowed indiscriminate searches of homes and warehouses for evidence of smuggling. In fact, that was challenged by one of the founders, James Otis, in a very famous case in 1761 in Boston, in which Otis argued that this was an absolute affront to the natural rights of Englishmen, and he called these general warrants, these indiscriminate searches, tools of slavery. John Adams was in the audience to hear him plead. Adams, then at 25 years old, years later, looked back on that as the seminal moment. He said, then and there, the child independence was born. To him, that was the moment, that was the seminal moment that began the American Revolution. That was the first sign that their sovereign had become a tyrant, when he began serving writs of assistance, general warrants, to provide for indiscriminate searches of citizens' homes and businesses.
Okay. Now, I had heard that the NSA is, in fact, knows the content and of the calls.
Well, that's the other thing.
There actually is the content when they say, well, believe us, we're not listening.
If you remember, months ago, James Clapper was directly asked, is the NSA collecting records of Americans in any kind of mass format without warrants? And he was specifically told no. Clapper said no to the congressional inquiry by Senator Wyden. That was a lie. It was a complete lie, and the lie was exposed when Edward Snowden began leaking the documents that we now all know about. We were then told, oh, don't worry, it's just metadata. It's not the content of your calls, it's not the content of your emails, it's just who you called, how long it took, when you called them. Well, now set aside the fact that that by itself is a gross violation of the Fourth Amendment. Those are private records that the government has no right to without a warrant. if I know who you've called, who you've emailed, what when you have, how long you've talked to them, I already know a great deal about you. But put all of that aside, we find out that that was also a lie. A new program has now come to light in the last in the last week, the X-Keyscore program, in which it is very clear that NSA analysts have been routinely perusing the content of people's emails.
Okay.
Without a warrant.
Right. Okay. Now, there was an interesting call that some fellow called in. His name was Larry, and he basically said, I had a personal IRS audit, and I was a Tea Party member, and when they were doing my audit on me personally, they were asking me about my ties to the Tea Party and things, and he was asking, what was his recourse? Is there a lot of that going on? And maybe
well, yes, there's a great deal of it going on. It began because the IRS was singling out conservative groups, Tea Party groups, Jewish groups supporting Israel, pro-life groups that were trying to get 501c3 or C4 status. This is the same status that's given to liberal groups routinely. MoveOn.org, for example, operates as a 501c4, NARAL, the ACLU, all have this status, but it was being routinely not only denied to these, or at least indefinitely delayed to these groups, but then they were being asked all sorts of intrusive questions. But now we find out it goes much further than that. Larry, the fellow who called in, is representative of a growing number of people we're finding out about who never applied for 501c4 status. They simply found themselves under a IRS audit. And one of the questions the IRS started asking them was, explain your relationship to this Tea Party group. What do you do for this Tea Party group? Well, the Tea Party groups, as they were applying for status, were being told they had to turn over the lists of all of their volunteers, all of their donors, everybody who had attended their meetings. And I suspect from what Larry said last night, he was one of those who showed up on one of these lists and then was singled out for a personal income tax audit. If there are other folks out there who've had a similar experience, there's a place now to complain. It's waysandmeans.house.gov. They are actually, this is the investigatory effort by the Ways and Means Committee to look into these kinds of abuses.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left. I know you are the chairman of the Water and Power. Can you tell us in as little time as you can, what is the Blue Ways?
The Blue Ways Initiative was a project of a radical left-wing environmental group called American Rivers. The idea is that you begin declaring streams and rivers blue ways from the headwaters to the mouth of the river. They've got their eyes set on, according to their own boasting, 3.5 million miles of American rivers around the country. This is done without any kind of congressional approval. They did it in Connecticut. They tried to do it to the White River in Arkansas, and the public there rebelled. And ultimately, the administration was forced to back off. This is a usurpation of Congress's legislative authority. It is a gross overreach, and the good news is that the people of Missouri and Arkansas, who were the victims of this designation, rose up, said hell no, and forced the administration to back off, which is good news for those of us in this region who are now fighting the attempt by the Fish and Wildlife Service to declare more than 2 million acres of the Sierra Nevadas. That's basically the footprint of the Sierra Nevadas from Lassen County north of Tahoe all the way down to Kern County. This has profound implications for the economy of the region. It introduces a completely new level of bureaucratic restrictions and meddling and permissions that are required simply for folks to make a living. Tourism could be very seriously affected. We're going to hear testimony today on that at the committee at the meeting in Sonora.
Okay, and that's where you'll be leaving right after you finish up here on TSPN.
That's right.
I really want to thank you for coming by.
Tom, my pleasure.
I think we're close to the end of our time. What do we have, Alan?
3 minutes.
One? Okay, so quickly, what about Yellowstone? Where's that at? You have 1 minute.
You mean Yosemite?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, the National Park Service has proposed removing long-standing amenities from Yosemite. That's the bicycle rentals, the raft rentals, the horseback riding rentals. They'll be taking out snack facilities, grocery stores. 2 of the 3 swimming pools will be closed as a result of this edict that they are considering imposing. The implications for tourism pretty profound. I mean, if you think about the fact that some of these amenities, like the ice skating rink at Curry Village or the stone bridges, go back to the 1920s, you're going to realize this is a radical change in the whole purpose of the Yosemite Valley, which was originally set aside, according to the legislation signed by Abraham Lincoln, for public use, resort, and recreation. And they are fundamentally changing that into a policy that can best be described as look but don't touch. And that's going to affect tourism throughout this region. As you know, we have many gateway communities that have lost most of their timber harvesting because of government restrictions, most of their mining, most of their most of what makes their economies go.
Is this independent of the endangered species with the yellow frog?
Yes,
this
exactly.
is independent. So there's basically like a 3-pronged attack right at the moment on the Sierras, and man having his place in it and visiting it and enjoying that part of nature as well.
In fact, one of the environmental groups pushing this designation of 2 million acres as critical habitat boasts about a visit recently to Granite Lake, where thank God everybody was leaving, because I want Granite Lake to myself. That reminded me of a Forest Service official who once bragged that his best day on the job was the day when he saw no people. These folks are trying to impose exclusionary policies to push the rest of the public off of the public's lands.
And it's really sad because
have to stand up.
Man needs to get to nature every now and then. I mean, we're in, but it's pretty man-made. So we need to get to those places to rejuvenate our soul.
And to enjoy nature. That was the whole vision that John Muir had and ripping out long-standing amenities that add to the enjoyment of the millions of people who visit the Yosemite Valley every year is abhorrent.
We're hitting a hard break. Thanks for coming by.
My pleasure,
Congressman Tom McClintock. Stay with us on TSPN.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.